I'd like to welcome everyone to the regular meeting, October 14th. Welcome back from a long weekend and full of turkey and Thanksgiving and the Blue Jays and everything else that's going on. So welcome. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask you to rise for the singing of O Canada. I will ask the director to do roll call.
Trustee Armour.
Present.
First Vice Chair Karkner.
Present.
Trustee Cram.
Present.
Trustee Garrell sends regrets. Trustee Bill McPherson.
Present.
Trustee Wendy McPherson.
Here.
Trustee McAllister.
Present.
Second Vice Chair McDonald.
Present.
Chair McMillan.
Present.
Trustee Richards.
Present.
Trustee Swan sends regrets. Student Trustee Alex McIsaac.
Present.
Thank you. I need a motion that the Upper Canada District School Board approve consent agenda items 3.02 to 3.03, October 14th, 2015, as submitted. Moved by Trustee Susan Richards and Trustee Wendy McPherson. And I want you to cast your votes.
I'm having technical difficulties, so I'll be voting by show of hands for a few minutes.
I'll take that.
Same thing as me, Chair.
That's fine. That carries. Thank you. Are there any conflict of interest declarations? Seeing there are none, we'll move on to the first item that's on the agenda, which I'm going to turn over to Superintendent David Coombs. This is the Ted Kennedy Legacy Award Terry Fox Challenge.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Here we are again. Another year has gone by and another Terry Fox run has been completed. Just if you're keeping score, last year we went over the $1 million mark in total contributions over the last 15 years by Upper Canada students during the Terry Fox run, which was held the 30th of September this year. It's been a tremendous endeavor for our students, but I also, this time of year, I also reflect on our friend and my mentor, Ted Kennedy, who was so instrumental in really making this really the heartbeat of Upper Canada. I remember Ted, as I'm sure most of you do, with great fondness. This year we raised $84,000 total, and brings our total contributions to $1.1 million over the past 15 years. So it really is exemplary. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to present the secondary and the elementary awards. This is calculated on a per student basis. So a large school, for example, might raise more than a smaller school, but a smaller school may raise more per pupil, and that's what we count for this award. And you'll probably notice a pattern to the winners, yet again we have the same winners coming back tonight. So Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, I'm going to go to the podium and make these presentations.
Certainly. Thank you.
I'd like to ask Principal Monique Hartley to come forward and accept the award for South Crosby Public School, 4 years in a row. Congratulations. Principal Hartley will make a few statements in just 1 second.
I will be very brief. It is indeed a pleasure and a great honor to have received this recognition of the Ted Kennedy Legacy Award again for the staff and students of South Crosby. As you can tell by the number of times we've won it, it is certainly a commitment that the Elgin and area certainly has committed to. One thing that Terry Fox said was, even if I don't finish, we need others to continue. It's got to keep going without me. And that indeed is what we're trying to do, is keep it going without him. Terry believed in miracles. Ted believed in miracles. And South Crosby does as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And the secondary award once again goes to Charlane High School. Charlane is I should say, South Crosby is 3 years in a row. Charlane is 4 years in a row. So congratulations to Charlane. Principal Cooper could not be here. Kathy Cooper could not be here tonight. She does pass along her best wishes and certainly wishes to mention that her staff enthusiastically embrace this every single year. They win the secondary category hands down every single year. I would like to make a couple of honorable mentions, if I may. Lagan Public School is chasing you, Monique, just so you know. They're very close, as is Rideau Vista and Rideau Centennial. So you've still got some competition. I'd also like to say that Seaway and North Dundas also had very good turnouts this year, as did TIS. So again, thank you very much for this. It certainly is a privilege for me to be here every year and mention this. We had a great week last week, 2 weeks ago, with the run day. Even though we had some bad weather and certainly we've had some situations regarding our labor situation, I can tell you that every school still participated in the Terry Fox Day, and I'm sure we'll have another good turnout. And I'll be here next year to make the same presentations. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. You know, I think on behalf of the board, I'd like to congratulate those who were leading in terms of winning this. But we'd also like to thank all of the schools that participated. I know I can speak on behalf of some of the trustees that are here that were brand new in the first term, this being our second term. I remember sitting right back and having Ted Kennedy sitting beside me. And we realized very quickly how special a man he was. And when you think about the words that Terry Fox said, keep it going without me, I think it speaks to the commitment, the dedication, the friendship of so many of you on the senior team who had the privilege of working with Ted. You have kept his legacy going in the same way as the rest of us are keeping Terry Kennedy. So on behalf of the board, I thank you for your commitment and your friendship and your dedication to Ted and to the Terry Fox. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just want to add one thing, not to take away from these particular schools, but there's one school that's still going to do their Terry Fox run, and it's actually in Trustee McPherson's ward, but it's not about the run for the students, it's what one of the teachers is going to be doing. Mm-hmm. He's actually going to be leaving the school that particular afternoon and running to Ottawa to the Terry Fox Memorial, so over a 100-kilometer run on Friday into Saturday, so he expects it'll take him about 12 hours or so. So teacher at Longsu Public School, Ian Callan, has got his students involved in the entire school community, so I wish him luck, and certainly that's a big endeavor to run 100 kilometers.
That's very impressive. Are you running alongside of him?
Yeah, in my car. With snacks.
That is, again, I mean, that's something that we're all so proud of when people put themselves out like that, and schools put themselves out, and then the kids get involved. So I think it's certainly an example of what a good role model is. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Okay, now at this point I need a motion to move into private session. A motion moved by Trustee Armour and seconded by Trustee McDonald that the Upper Canada School Board move into private session October 14th, 2015. Let's just have a show of hands. Thank you very much. So we're going to move into private session. I have no idea how long it's going to take. I don't anticipate it'll be a long time, but thank you. Okay, I need a motion that the Upper Canada District School Board approve the additional of agenda item 7.02, report from the private session, October 14th, 2015, moved by Trustee Kargner, seconded by Trustee McAllister. I should cast your votes on that. And that carries, thank you. The next on the agenda is report from a private session, September 23rd, 2015. At the Committee of the Whole and Private Session 2020, or September 23rd, 2015, one personnel matter was discussed, and the following recommendation was brought to the board. It was moved, or I need a motion, a mover, that the Upper Canada District School Board approve the two motions carried in private session September 23rd, 2015, within agenda item D.1. Moved by Trustee McDonald, seconded by Trustee Karkner. I should have cast your votes on that. And that carries, thank you. A report from a private session, October 14th, 2015. At the Committee of the Whole and private session, October 14th, 2015, one personnel matter, two property matters, and one contractual matter was discussed. The following recommendation is being brought forward to the board due to the time-sensitive manner. I need a mover and a seconder that the Upper Canada District School Board approve the motion carried in private session October 14th, 2015, within agenda item D.1, moved by Trustee Wendy McPherson, seconded by Trustee Cram. And I should have cast your votes, please. And that carries. Thank you. Moving on to item 8.01, it's the asthma policy 4003, which is a new policy. And I'm going to turn this over to Superintendent David Coombs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good evening, trustees. It's my pleasure to introduce System Operations Policy number 4003. This is to bring us in compliance with Ryan's Law, enacted in the spring. And Ryan's Law, the purpose of which is to create schools that are friendly to asthmatic students. You may not realize this, but asthma is perhaps the most common chronic childhood diseases. So, for example, anaphylactic, or those students that are affected by Sabrina's Law, represents about 2% of our population. About 20% of our student population are asthmatic. Now, this can range anywhere from very mild symptoms to life-threatening symptoms. Excuse me. The Ryan's Law is named after a student who died at school in 2012, having a severe life-threatening, obviously, reaction. His father was at the legislature when this was enacted back in May. So the policy itself is fairly self-explanatory. It talks about asthma being a very common chronic but long-term lung disease. People with asthma have sensitivity to certain triggers, and those triggers can be anything from cold air to exercise to mold or dust. Any of these things can trigger an asthma attack. These symptoms can be quite minor, just some difficulty in finding your breath, and you just need to take a bit of time. They can be quite major as well. Also, in this policy, there are obviously accompanying procedures which will be implemented to ensure that we have friendly schools to asthmatic students. Just to give you a bit of a big picture of what the procedures look like, many of you are already familiar with Sabrina's Law, which is anaphylactic procedures. It looks very similar to the procedures look very similar to Sabrina's Law. So, for example, principals will be maintaining a asthmatic management plan for each student. And if you've been in schools, you've seen the pictures of kids. They're usually behind the desk or in a workroom where the public can't see, but the secretary can see, the office administrator. Pictures of the student with the plan for management. It will be exactly the same. Well, it'll look very similar, except it will be for asthmatic students. The second most important thing, and the similarity to Sabrina's Law, is that all students can carry their inhalers. That might seem fairly obvious, but in a survey of our current state across the province, this actually was one of the major components or the major findings from looking at the current state at our schools, that not all students were allowed or did carry their inhalers. And of course, like carrying an EpiPen for a significant reaction, an asthmatic may need an inhaler in the same way, and it can be life-threatening. So in building compliance with this, we found out through Rowan's Law, the concussion policy, that when we enacted it back in January of last year, it did take time to build awareness and to track and monitor progress of that awareness. And that is still ongoing, by the way. So for example, we can determine exactly how many concussions were dealt with in our schools last year, and we are still filling in the gaps in some of our training. In the same way, we will need to do that with Ryan's Law to make sure that the awareness campaign continues throughout the fall, but we're also going to have to train staff with the assistance of our local health units to make sure that they can recognize an asthmatic attack, making sure that they understand what their responsibilities are during an asthmatic attack, and also that they can recognize the different kinds of inhalers that students may carry during that time as well. And finally, the final component is the monitoring of compliance. And that will be under my responsibility in my department, and it will be something which will continue throughout this year as we monitor the awareness training, the communication with parents and staff, including STAL, Student Transportation of Eastern Ontario, and students, and we'll also track the training which goes on in schools on an ongoing basis. So the policy itself is fairly short, as you can imagine. The procedure is quite extensive, again, similar to the anaphylactic or Sabrina's Law procedure. Just as a quick note, just to conclude, in the queue already is another procedure regarding diabetes. And there has been talk around the province that there is a necessity for some kind of overarching framework so schools can make sense of all these procedures that come down the pipe. I know certainly in discussions with the health unit, they are assisting, they're going to assist us in sort of creating a one-stop shopping package for administrators and schools, so when anything new comes in, it simply slips into the training and awareness campaign with the health units. Because there are more things coming down, again, as I said, the diabetes policy, epilepsy, so there's a number of new policies coming out. But the concern I know that from the provincial level right now is are we overloading our principals with all these different procedures, each one requiring extensive training and certainly a significant checklist of responsibilities. So that's my presentation. I'll certainly be happy to take any questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up to questions, but I'm going to go to the motion first. And then what we'll do is we'll put questions on the motion, because the motion basically is to approve the policy. So I have a motion that the Upper Canada District School Board approve the asthma policy 4003 as submitted October 14th. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Trustee McDonald, Trustee Bill McPherson. And now I'll open up for discussion, if there are, in terms of the motion or in terms of the policy. So are there any comments or questions? Trustee McPherson?
Is there anything in the procedure to give administration the power to, say, eliminate potential triggers? One common one is spray aerosol. Somebody's got right guard in their gym bag and they spray it in the hallway or on the school bus. And then next thing you do, you have a student with breathing problems. Is there anything in that, I guess, in the procedure framework,
Yes.
to state that principals can identify certain triggers and then try to eliminate them?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, indeed. Part of the training is an awareness over the different kinds of triggers. And what you're talking about, we used to call in secondary school the axe effect, where these body sprays would be, let's just say that they would be used extensively, and that certainly a sensitivity can trigger an asthmatic response. So when we talk about scent-free schools, this again, I guess would compound that policy that any principal can say, this is actually a threat or a concern going forward. So yes.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing there are none, I have a motion put forward by Trustee McDonald, seconded by Trustee Bill McPherson, that the Upper Canada District School Board approve asthma policy 4003 as submitted October 14th, 2015. I'll ask you to cast your votes, please. Trustee Cramp? Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Moving on to 8.02, the report of the Special Education Advisory Committee, SEAC, and I'll turn this over to the chair of that committee, Trustee Bill McPherson.
Okay, this is actually a report from our first meeting after the summer. It took place in September, and we've actually met once since then as well. Basically, good start up the school year. We've got some new people and some new roles, and everybody's working hard to make it work. Valerie did mention that Chris Hawthorne and Mayor Rowland have done a fair amount of work this year, and they're working in the schools with students and staff to get these adjustments through. We've looked at EA allotments. The spec ed plan has been approved, and SEAC did send a letter on behalf of the Special Education Advisory Committee to the ministry in regards to the funding cuts at the high needs amounts. As chair, I chose not to sign this letter simply because as a trustee, I had approved that budget. I felt it was potential conflict. So the vice chair, Kimberly Wright, signed it on my behalf, or signed it on behalf of SEAC. And we did some agenda planning. As you can see, we're in for a busy year. And then we had a proposal come forth for an Educators Award for Excellence and Inclusion. And this was an interesting discussion because from the point of view of the Spec Ed Committee, inclusive education means students with high needs. From my position as a trustee, all means all. So this is kind of in flux right now. We haven't decided exactly what we're going to do with it. There was some thought of declaring February as National Inclusive Education Month and following that up with a 5-minute video on Facebook or something like that. We're just playing with it right now. But it will require a board motion at some point. And it was an interesting meeting, a little long-winded, but we got through it. And so that's basically the report.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions regarding the report? Okay, seeing there are none, I'm going to move on to item 8.03, and I'm going to turn this over to Ops Squad Director David McDonald, who's going to give us a report from Ops Squad.
Thank you very much. Final score in the game, 6-3 Toronto Blue Jays.
Thank you. Okay, so
I figure I'd get to the important parts first. Board of Directors met on September 27th, 28th in Toronto. That was our first meeting of this particular school year. Two of the things that I want to just get out in front right now is that we have a regional meeting that is coming up on October 24th here at Brockville. All trustees are welcome to come to that meeting. The other boards will have their representatives come as well. It's usually a 10 to 2 time frame. Starts at 10. We usually are done by 2:30 at the latest. So we'll get you home in plenty of time. The other thing is the PES is coming up in I'll get my months right here, in January. And so if you're interested in going to that, certainly let Lisa know so that we can start to book you in for that. Typically those conferences are quite informative for trustees. Last year would have been a new opportunity for some of our new trustees, and usually those are a lot of PD sessions for new trustees. This one will get you into a little bit more meat and potatoes, and they've had some good sessions in the past. At the Board of Directors meeting, we had a full agenda, and Friday night was really consumed with a presentation by the acting ombudsman, who was the deputy ombudsman, but became the acting ombudsman whenever the previous individual was not renewed his contract. Barbara Finley is the current acting ombudsman. She was there to provide us an overview of what she's doing and what her crew have been doing since the beginning of the school year. Certainly their role is to not overturn decisions, but to help alleviate any issues or concerns with the public, and also deal with some situations that perhaps if a process was not followed. I don't view, I guess based on the presentation that Barbara Finley provided, I don't view the role quite as disastrous as it could have been given the previous individual. I think the mindset and the professionalism of Barbara was, I think, reassuring for most. That office will, it has a mandate. It's going to, undertake its mandate, but it's certainly not going to be something that will cause any issues for boards unless they are doing something extremely wrong. So I don't see that as an issue for us in particular. There was also just a quick overview on the professional development. You heard at our last meeting. There were 4 new modules released on the website, and certainly those modules are also on our board docs library. You can go in and get that. What makes a great board chair, First Nation trustees, leading in 2 worlds, developing a code of conduct for trustees, and social media. I also had a quick overview on copyright. That's been something that's been ongoing for some time. Boards are currently using a fair dealing guidelines to ensure school board copyright compliance. At the end of the day, it's been good for us. We've had some good opportunities to ensure that the cost didn't creep up too high. But there is a potential that this could become a problem in the future if the copyright matters before the copyright board have their way, and they'll be able to start charging a little bit more for copyright material. That includes photocopying stuff in our schools. It could include some of the downloading stuff that we have as well. I'll talk about labor relations a little bit later on. Finance, there's a new, and we've talked about it here, new release of the Pupil Accommodation Review Guideline, student transportation RFPs. There really isn't much happening across the province when it comes to student transportation RFPs. Everything's a bit of a holding pattern. The one main RFP that is being undertaken right now, challenge I guess, is still being addressed before the courts, and has the province involved as well. So it suspect that probably won't be resolved. In fact, the RFP around transportation probably won't be resolved for at least another, I would say, a year to 2 years at a minimum. To complement the Pupil Accommodation Review Guideline, there's also a Community and Planning Partnership Guideline that came out, and also the Education Funding Consultation Guide. So that is out, came out September 25th. It's an opportunity to have some input before they start to determine what the GSNs are. So I've had some preliminary discussions with Nancy, and I know that it's on the agenda at least to be reviewed, and OPSPO will be having an opportunity to present and provide a submission. So if we have some challenges that we think may be facing us around spec ed perhaps, there's an opportunity for us to provide some input back to OPSPA and also up to the ministry. Early years update, reported on the Child Care Modernization Act and the proclamation of the new Child Care and Early Years Act, as well as proposed changes to the Education Act. Nancy, or what's her name here? Nancy Matthews is the new Assistant Deputy Minister, replacing Jim Grieve in the Early Years Division. And there is some media attention that's happened as a result of the new FDK outdoor playgrounds, as well as some of the FDK classrooms with high enrollment. So that's something that OPSPA has been working on. Legislative updates. I think since we last met, the Patrick Brown has been elected and sworn into House as leader of the Conservative, but Patrick Brown is also the education critic. So he's someone that will have a strong voice, I guess, at the as a leader, have an opportunity to share some of the things around the table. And of note, the parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Education is an MPP in our area, Grant Crack. So he's another person that probably is some interest to having some discussions with for our board. There's ongoing review of municipal legislation, including the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act and the Municipal Elections Act. So that's happening and being undertaken. They also gave us an update on health and safety. I'm not sure about our particular board, but in some boards, it's as a result of the coroner's inquest, and we heard, and I can't remember the incidents. There's the legislation that came out, but the incident, one in particular, was in Ottawa with the explosion. There's another one, but as a result of those two coroner's inquests, the Ministry of Labour now is going into schools and inspecting schools. So during the months of November and December, there'll be some inspections taking place. I'm not sure if it's going to be within Upper Canada or throughout the province. Community Hubs and Strategic Framework Action Plan. So last year, all the information came out, and it was fairly rushed to have this. Petrie. What was Petrie's first name? Mrs. Petrie, anyway. Headed a committee, or headed a group that received input. Karen Petrie on community hubs. She provided her final report to the Premier. As a result of that, the Premier's Community Hubs Strategic Framework and Action Plan. OPSPA has been invited to be a stakeholder in the engagement meetings. That meeting was held October 1st, and OPSPA will continue to advocate on behalf of the requirements for boards, and also work on building a relationship with AMO, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. AODA updates. Boards have to submit a report by the end of the year. First Nation Council update. There were a number of action items out of that. OPSPA sent a letter to the Minister of Education to thank her for engagement on the First Nation Trustee Council. And then the Association des Conseils Scolaires des Écoles Publiques co-signed the letter. OPSPA sent a letter of congratulations to the Premier and the Chiefs of Ontario with regard to the political accord signed on August 24th. There was a note where we talked about EQO results. The EQO release of the grade 10 OSSLT, there is an 11% drop in the percentage of students who were successful in the grade 10 literacy test after having not met the provincial standard of grade 6. So that's something that is of concern to the province and obviously to us as boards. We also talked about OPSPA priorities. You heard me talk previous meetings about the priorities, and we had discussions at the AGM. OPSPA will be working on those priorities as part of their multi-year plan. And the OPSPA priorities will be produced in the document, the key work of OPSPA, so that we'll see that. It's usually a little booklet. As soon as they update that, I'll have copies for you as well. During our Board of Directors meetings, we also get updates from the Program and Policy committees, and the Program and Policy committees met just a week prior to our Board of Directors meeting. And during those meetings, since they are the first meetings of this particular year, they had elected some chairs and vice chairs. On the Education Program Committee, our very own Carol Karkner is now the vice chair. Congratulations, Trustee Carol Karkner. And as you know, Trustee McAllister sits on the Policy Committee. Just going back quickly to the labor relations side of things, labor relations is an ongoing issue across the province, as you know, and much of it is in a private domain as it relates to collective bargaining. This afternoon, OPSPA released a press release dealing with work around Elementary Teachers Federation. We've had more than 30 days of bargaining with ETFO and OPSPA to resolve the majority of the issues as a result of long negotiations last week that ended on Saturday this past week. Most of the issues have been resolved and tentatively agreed to. Those matters are related to class size, teacher supervision time, preparation time, salary increases, the Regulation 274 hiring practices, the addition of a professional activity day, moratorium on ministry initiatives. But there's still some work to do on some things, and more particularly committees that will be formed to deal with health and safety issues, workload issues, full-day kindergarten class size, and grade 4 to 8 class size. There's still 2 lingering issues that need to be resolved, and those issues are sick leave and benefits. OPSPA and the ministry are really waiting for a return of ETFO to be able to resolve those issues. And once we have ETFO back, we'll be able to hopefully resolve those issues fairly quickly and have some resolution around that particular bargaining unit. As you know, there's ongoing negotiations with CUPE for us, and those items are really in a collective bargaining process and not able to be shared in a public forum at this point. That is my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing there are none, moving on to one of my highlights. Director, you have some remarks.
I do. I have three points that I'd like to make this evening, and I would like to start off by commending our principals and vice principals throughout the Upper Canada Board who have shown tremendous leadership and perseverance over the last number of weeks as a result of our labor situations, which involve both ETFO and CUPE. So essentially every school in our board has been impacted by the work rule, and consequently much of the organization and administrative tasks have fallen to the principals and vice principals, and I want to thank them because they have gone beyond their usual duties to ensure the safety and security of our students and the well-being of our students as well. In addition, I would just like to acknowledge the leadership of the senior team in that same regard, in that they have provided tremendous support for our principals throughout the board, both personally visiting the schools and supporting and assisting the principals and giving them some guidance, and also, of course, the work that they have done here at the central office to ensure that our operations run smoothly throughout the school board. So thank you very much to our principals and vice principals and to our senior team. 2 events I'd like to make note of. One is being hosted this Saturday, October the 17th. It's called, it's the Fall Gathering for Parents and School Councils, and it is taking place at North Grenville District High School between 9 and 2 p.m. this Saturday. It's sponsored by our PIC committee, our Parent Involvement Committee, and supported ably by Superintendent David Coombs. So if you have some free time on Saturday, please head to North Grenville. They would appreciate knowing that you're coming because they're going to give you a free lunch when you get there. So there is more information on our website, and if you seek that out, you will see that you need to contact Berva Rice to let her know that you're coming. And lastly, I had a chance to attend just briefly a Native Student Leadership event at the Drummond Building in Spencerville. And it was actually a 2-day event this week. And I was really heartened to see the increase in student participation in this event. I commented to one of the organizers that it seems that every time I attend a Native Student Leadership event, there are more and more students there. And this is it is very heartening because these students, of course, are in every school in our jurisdiction, and we are working creatively and diligently with them to support their learning and support their success. And it's wonderful to see them out at these events. And so to that end, I would like to also acknowledge the leadership of Superintendent Edwards and also Vice Principal Laurie Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, you started off by taking my words again.
Oh, did I? I'm
no, it's
sorry.
everyone's taking my words tonight. That's okay.
Give them again.
You know, there's no question that with the present labor situation, that these are challenging times for our schools. There's no question. You know, we know that everywhere from the senior team right straight through to our administration in our schools are working very hard. There's no question when people are doing the jobs that they're doing and the extra responsibility that it takes its toll. And I think it's important to know that we at the board recognize the fact that there's a lot of work going on and that it is more difficult for some than others. And we recognize that it's not an easy task, but at the same time we have the confidence that everyone is supported and moving forward. So I thank everyone for what they're doing right now in that area. I know this Friday our student trustee is going to be having his first student senate. If you have the opportunity as a trustee to go to one of those, I think it's a wonderful experience to be in the same room as all of these energetic young people who we make decisions on behalf of. And I know you're excited to have this happen, and we're excited for you. So again, if you ever get the opportunity to show up, I know it means a lot to the student trustees to see trustees sitting in the room because it shows the support that we have. So if you get a chance to do that. Other than that, I don't have anything else I want to say other than I'm glad the Blue Jays won tonight, and I'm glad that at the board table we stayed focused on our business. We were all focused, but I think in the back of their mind we could hear the cheers in the hall. So again, I need a motion to adjourn at a motion. Trustee Wendy, you're taking over my job. I like that. Trustee Wendy McPherson, Trustee Bill McPherson, that the Upper Canada District School Board be adjourned at 8:03, October 28th, 2015. Just a show of hands. Thank you, everyone. Safe travels.